After all the busyness of October, I thought it would be nice to enjoy the sunshine at my desk and swatch watercolors I've been collecting this year. I really wanted a palette of granulating watercolors, but haven't seen any that felt like it fit my style. So I collected individual colors from 3 different brands over the last year, and I'm really excited to share them with you. Maybe you'll discover a few treasures of your own in this collection. First is Caput Mortem by Deep Deep Light. The granulation in these are so beautiful and they're really rich and pigmented. It granulates really well. It's slightly pink. I didn't have a pink in my collection. It is beautiful in mass tone and also watered down in a wash as well. Burnt Sienna Almiata is by A. Gallo. This paint is fairly transparent. It still slightly granulates. It's very warm, and I love mixing this with some of my other earthy tones. And I can't wait to try this in some fur textures as well. Next is Cranberry by Deep Deep Light. It's also transparent. It's a beautiful berry color. It does not granulate, but it makes wonderful washes. Contemporary Vermilion by Deep Deep Light was a must-have in my collection. It does slightly granulate. It's very pigmented, very rich. I've mixed it with many other colors in this collection, and I always love the result. I needed an orange for my collection, and as soon as I saw Daylily by Deep Deep Light, I knew that this was going to be the one for my palette. It's beautifully transparent, although if you use it in mass tone, it gets a little bit more opaque, but not a lot. Though I can use this as an accent color, it's not so bright and so vibrant that it takes over the piece. It really is just beautifully subtle. Gold Ochre by Deep Deep Light is my most used color. I use gold ochre in everything, especially leaves, but even just I can't imagine anything that I haven't used gold ochre in, honestly. I use it all the time. I will probably need to purchase more very soon because I use it so much. The Deep Deep Light gold ochre is a little more warm compared to my other gold ochre by A. Gallo, and it is a little more transparent. Gold Ochre by A. Gallo. I love this color. It's a little more opaque, like I said, and not as warm as the Deep Deep Light, but it's so beautiful. I love that I can get a little more opacity with it, which is why I have 2 gold ochres in my collection. French Ochre by A. Gallo is one of my absolute favorite colors in this palette. There's just something that's so wonderfully vintage and classic about this color. I love dropping it into greens and watching it bloom inside wet on wet paint. Just absolutely one of my favorites. I needed a yellow for my collection because I do use yellow a lot, primarily in mixing. I rarely use yellow just by itself. But Permanent Yellow Light by Deep Deep Light is just so pigmented. It mixes so well. It really is just beautiful on its own. I just typically don't use it by itself in my own work. But you would be thrilled with this color if you really love yellow. Solstice Fern by Deep Deep Light is one of my favorite greens in this. It is beautifully granulated. I love doing washes with this or dropping other pigments into this color when I'm using wet on wet. It's one of the staples in this palette. Sap Green is a little more yellow leaning than Solstice Fern, but the two are very similar. Between the two, this one is more vibrant. It granulates a little bit more, and it will have a little more opacity than Solstice Fern. Olive Green Deep by A. Gallo is hands down one of my ultimate favorites in this palette. It is so stunning in person. It granulates beautifully. It's got a lot of warm yellows, oranges that come out, as well as some deep blues. It's very rich. I can't say enough good things about Olive Green Deep. I recently picked up the Forest collection from Schminke. I think that's how you say it. I am not German. I apologize if I did not say that correctly. They're so beautiful. I'm so glad that I picked up this collection. And I also picked up their Tundra collection. Most of the Forest colors are next to each other, but I do have to admit that I was not paying attention as much as I should have been and did mix up two of the names. So my apologies. If you see the arrows, you just switch out those colors. They're right next to each other. It should be fine. But enjoy seeing these colors. They're so beautiful. I'm so happy that I added them to my palette. I needed some dark greens in my collection, so I collected Forest Green by Deep Deep Light, Dark Forest by A. Gallo, and Forest Blue by Schminke. All three of these are subtly different. They granulate very well. I love using them in my work, and they just inspire me to just go out to the woods. Tundra Green and Forest Gray by Schminke were really interesting colors. When it separates while it's drying, it creates some really beautiful textures, and I love using them in my work. Juniper by Deep Deep Light is a very opaque, very rich, dark teal color. I use juniper almost as much as I use gold ochre. I love this color. Deep Blue by Deep Deep Light is a transparent, icy blue. I love using this in shadows or washes in the background. Midnight by A Gallo is a very vibrant, rich, deep blue. I love how opaque this is. I've used it in so many ways so far. I usually mix it with other colors or drop it in as shadows. I've used this in place of black sometimes just to give um, a little more vibrancy to my shadows instead of just having a matte black. Tundra Blue by Schminke was one of the most beautiful granulating colors that I have in this collection. I love the way that the pigments crackle as it dries. I was really just surprised just how much it separated out, and it had such beautiful texture when it dried. Night Raspberry by Deep Deep Light is one of my favorite blues. It has this red undertone to it. And when it dries, it just creates this almost leaning on purple quality to it. It granulates a little bit, It's not one of my strongest granulating watercolors, but it's one of my favorite blues. I could not live without a Payne's Gray in my palette. It's a must-have, and I love this one by A. Gallo. It leans a little more blue than some of the other Payne's Gray that I've seen out there. It's very opaque, but it also does absolutely beautiful washes. It's just another color that is a staple in my palette, and I needed to have it. Tundra Violet by Schminke was, as soon as I used it, like one of my top 3 favorites in this palette. It is so dynamic. It granulates beautifully. It's got several different pigments that come out. I think you'd be really happy with Tundra Violet. For purples in my collection, I wanted purples that were more light fast, and it's so difficult for me to find purples that I'm happy with that are also um, relatively light fast and I'd feel comfortable using in paintings that I sell. Bramble by Deep Deep Light and Tundra Pink by Schminke are very similar. Bramble leans more blue, while Tundra Pink leans more towards red, but both are granulating. They're gorgeous when they dry. They're similar, but if you want one more red or one more blue, I highly recommend either one of those. Tundra Orange by Schminke, Burnt Umber Brownish by A. Gallo, and Burnt Umbra by Deep Deep Light are my lighter reddish browns. I use reddish browns all the time in my work, especially when I'm doing different coat colors with animals, and each one is subtly different. Some are more opaque than others, some have a little more granulation, but I love all 3 of these colors. Hematite by A. Gallo is an opaque red that I love putting in other colors. I don't really use it by itself too much, but it helps me get a little more warmth and opacity to the other colors that I use. It is beautiful on its own, but I primarily use it for mixing. Chromite Brown by A. Gallo and Castle Brown by Deep Deep Light are my dark, rich browns. They're very similar in color, but if I need more of a granulating color, I'll go for Chromite Brown. If I want something that's a little more even when it dries or a little more transparent, I'll go with Castle Brown. But both of these I use all the time, and I'll probably need to order more soon because I'm running out. They're beautiful colors and I highly recommend them. Roman Black Earth by A. Gallo is my more transparent black. It is a little more even and transparent than Mars Black that I have next to it by Deep Deep Light. If you love silvery grays, this watercolor in a wash is just gorgeous, especially when you pair it with something that's warm next to it. It's just stunning. If you like silvery gray, this is the watercolor. Mars Black by Deep Deep Light is one of my favorites of the granulating colors that I have. I use it all the time in mixes, and it just creates a little more depth and a little more dynamic of a color when I mix it with my other colors in this palette. And here they are all dry. I hope this was fun and at least entertaining for you. I hope this is helpful in your collection journey, or maybe even kept you company as you were working on your painting. If you enjoyed the video and want to support my work, please consider subscribing and liking the video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.